everyone, Hannah here from Daisy Farm Crafts. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this blanket, the colorful crayons crochet blanket that I made to go with one of our favorite cute picture books, The Day the Crayons Quit. And for this blanket, I used Bernat Softee Baby yarn, which is 100% acrylic, and I used a size H 5mm crochet hook. I think the yarn calls for a size 4, or sorry, a 4mm crochet hook. So if you feel like you need to size down a hook, feel free, do whatever works best for your tension. But I did use a 5mm for this one. And the colors that I'm using are white, and then this is called grass green, navy, pumpkin, and this one is called soft red. And for the whole blanket, I used 4 skeins of the white and then just 1 each of these colors. And the finished size of this blanket is about 35 inches by 40 inches. And I did work the blanket lengthwise, meaning I made a longer than usual base chain. So I made, my base chain 40 inches, and then I worked until it was 35 inches wide. So the blanket is really worked this way when you're crocheting. But like I said, I made it longer so that they could be vertical like the crayons. And as usual, the full written pattern for this blanket is on daisyfarmcrafts.com. All right, so to get started, you're going to want to make a base chain that is a multiple of 15 and then add 7. So for this little swatch, I am going to chain 22. And I'm going to start in the 3rd chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to start with 1 row of half double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the 3rd chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 3 loops. And I'm just going to do 1 half double crochet in each chain all the way across this row. Yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And at the end of this row, after I work my last half double crochet, I'm just going to chain 2 and turn. And I'm going to work another row of half double crochet, but I'm going to do what my mom and I like to call wide half double crochet. So instead of going into the top of the stitch like we normally would, I am going to go in between the stitches or the posts of the previous row. So I'm going to insert my hook into that space that's all the way underneath that stitch and work my half double crochet. So we call this wide half double crochet or half double crochet in between the posts, and I'm going in this space kind of in between the stitches of the previous row. And it just makes for this really nice kind of flat look, so that when we do the colorful rows, they pop out a little bit more. And I'm just going to do that all the way across. And when you get to the end of the row, you just want to make sure you work your last stitch in between the last stitch of the previous row and the turning chain. So just make sure you get that last space. Work your half double crochet and then chain 2 and turn. And then in the blanket, I just worked 3 more rows of this wide half double crochet. So I had 5 rows of the white each time before I started adding in the colors. So for the actual blanket, you'll want to do 5 rows in between each of the colors. I'm just going to do 1 more row for this swatch, and then I'll show you how we start adding in the color. All right, so after you work your 5 rows of wide half double crochet, we're going to start adding in the color. So I'm just going to start by keep doing wide half double crochet, and I'm going to do 5 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to pause on the 5th stitch before I finish. Instead of pulling through with the white when I have 3 loops on my hook, I'm going to bring in this color. So I'm just going to lay this on my hook and pull it through the loops. And I'm going to leave this tail for later to weave in. And I'm just going to pull this a little bit tight so that it's a little more secure. And I'm going to kind of lay it across the top of that first stitch. And I'm going to crochet over it. And this next stitch that I'm going to do is what we like to call wide half double crochet cluster. So it's basically the same. I'm just going to yarn over and pull up a loop 2 times instead of once. So yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over and pull up 1 more loop. And you don't have to make this a cluster. If you want to just keep it all the same wide half double crochet stitch, if that's easier, you totally can. I just wanted these to the color, you know, the crayons part to pop out a little bit more from the blanket. So I just gave them a little bit of extra texture. So I'm going to do 10 of these green stitches. And again, I'm just still carrying this yarn, laying it across the top of my work, and crocheting over it as I go. So when I get to the 10th stitch, again, I'm going to pause and before I finish the stitch, and I'm going to bring this green yarn to the front of my work just so it doesn't get too tangled. And I'm going to pull through with the white. And then I'm going to keep the green right here and crochet over it. I guess I should say if you were continuing to work the blanket, you would keep the green and you would crochet over it and then do another 10 of the green. So you're just carrying yarn all the way across and crocheting over whichever color you aren't using, doing 5 of the white and 10 of the color all the way across. And then once you get to the end, the very end, I'm actually going to just leave this and cut a tail that you can weave into the blanket at the end. So I'm actually not going to carry that yarn right now. And you would finish the row with 5 wide half double crochets in the white. But before I finish this row, let me just show you what it would be like if you were switching back from the white to the green yarn. So I'm just going to lay the green across the top of my work like we did before. And now I'm just working regular wide half double crochet. And then if this was the 5th stitch, then I would pause. This time I'm just going to leave this white yarn to the back. And that just kind of helps to keep my yarn from getting tangled. So just imagine like if you're sitting on the couch and you have these 2 skeins next to you, I would just kind of keep this one below and this one on top, and so that's why I'm always pulling the green yarn forward when I switch, and I'm leaving the white yarn back so that it doesn't get tangled. So then pull through with the green, and then you would just start crocheting over the white again. And then again, when you were going to switch back, this is where you would kind of pull that green to the front first. And then that just helps these two things from getting tangled. So that's how you switch back and forth. But like I said, since this is the end of the row, we're just going to leave this and cut ourselves a tail that we can weave into the blanket later. All right, so when you start doing this next row, we're just gonna do regular wide half double crochet like we were doing before and working in between those posts. And when we get to this green part, you're still gonna work in between the posts, but we're gonna, to help keep our yarn hidden, you're going to insert your hook underneath that little carried yarn. And you don't actually have to do that on this green part because it hides the yarn pretty well. But you're going to want to do that on the parts where the green is being carried through on the white. So I'm just going to show you again. You can kind of just turn your work toward the back side and then just kind of pop your hook under that little carried yarn. That just helps to kind of keep that yarn from showing through. But again, it's mostly important, I'll show you in the real blanket, on this middle part. So you can still kind of see it peeking through a little bit, but since I crocheted over it on the next row too, it really helps to kind of hide those lines a little bit better. So that is pretty much all you need to know for the main part of the blanket. Like I said, you're just doing 5 rows of the white with regular white half double crochet, and then you start working the color row, and then these are all 5 white and then 10 color with the wide half double crochet cluster. And you're just always crocheting over whichever color you're not using. So I made another little swatch with some different colors. I was running out of the white, but I wanted to show you real quick how I wove in these ends for this part. So I just am using a tapestry needle, and I just kind of wove the colors back into the color section. And I just kind of went through the orange, and then through the pink, and then through the orange again for 5 or 6 times, just so it's kind of going up and down on each row. Help keep those secure. And then maybe when you're finished, just come back this direction a little bit. Oh, no, that doesn't look good. We'll just go right there. And then I just cut this and hide those in. So you'll want to weave in all of those ends first, and then we'll do the border. To get started on the border, I am just going to pull up a loop in this top left-hand corner and chain 1. And I'm just going to work half double crochet all around for this first round of the border. So I'm just going to work 1 half double crochet right into that first space, and half double crochet into the next space, and I'm basically along the sides just working 1 half double crochet per row. All right. This last one, and then I'm just going to work 3 half double crochets into this corner space. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to basically just do 1 half double crochet per stitch along the ends, and I'm gonna still work in between the posts instead of going on these edges, mostly because I think it looks better, and also that'll kind of help keep this base chain from pulling away from the bottom of the blanket. So kind of just work in between those stitches on the bottom. And then we'll do the same thing in the corner, do 3 half double crochets in each of the corners, and then go all the way around. All right, so back at the starting corner, after you finish this last side, I'm just going to slip stitch into this starting stitch. And I'm going to keep going in the same direction, and I'm going to start doing a back loop single crochet border. So I'm going to chain 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can chain as many as you like. This will, however many you chain is how thick your border will be. So I thought 6 was a good amount for this blanket. And I'm just gonna start working back down the chain, and I'm gonna do single crochet in each of those chains. So I'm gonna have 5 stitches. 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to keep working down this side, and I'm going to insert my hook into the next unworked stitch. So if you look at the bottom of this stitch, you can see that there's that little anchor there, so we've already worked into that stitch. So I'm going to work into this one, and I'm going to do 1 slip stitch, and then another slip stitch into the next unworked stitch. Then I'm going to turn my work toward me like I'm turning a page in a book. So I'm going to turn it toward my left hand. And I'm going to work back up the chains. This time I'm only working in the back loops. And I'm going to do my single crochet. So I'm going to skip over these first 2 since those were our slip stitches. And I'm going to pull this a little bit tighter. And I'm going to do back loop single crochet in each of those 5 single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work back toward my right hand, and then I'm just going to do the same thing but going back down. So I'm going to start right in that this first stitch from the hook, work in the back loops, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to pull up that last one. And then again, I'm going to look for the next unworked stitch. So we can tell that this one has been worked into. So we're going to do this one and do 1 slip stitch, 1 slip stitch, turn it toward my left hand, and do the same thing again. Skip over the 2 and start working up in the back loops only. So I'm just going to keep repeating this pattern all the way around, working back up and down to make this cool little ribbing. Now when you get to the corners, sometimes it'll work out so that you'll do your 2 slip stitches and then you'll just land in the corner. Sometimes you may just need to only slip stitch once because we want to stay in that corner and work up and down at least 2 or 3 times so that it kind of fans around the corner before we keep going. So I'm just going to slip stitch once right here into this corner stitch. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I only have 1 stitch to skip over. So I'm going to work my back loop single crochets back up. Five, chain 1, and then work back down. Three, 4, 5. And since I want to keep anchored in this corner, I'm going to work right back into that same corner space again and just slip stitch once. And then do the same thing again. Work back up and down. And then I usually do that about 3 times. You just kind of want to make sure that it starts fanning around, and if it looks like it's too fanned, you can do it 1 less, or if it looks like it's not fanned enough, then you can work into that corner again 1 more time. All right, so I've gone up and down 3 times, and it's still looking like this corner isn't quite fanning all the way, as much as this one. You kind of want to have like 3 lines that look like it makes the corner. So I think I'm going to go into this corner stitch 1 more time. Four, 5. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. So now I'm going to start working into these next 2 unworked stitches, and I'm just going to start going back and doing what we were before. So slip stitch 2 times, and then start working back up and down, and just kind of lay it flat after you go along, and just make sure that that is looking good, fanned out. Kind of looks the same as the other corner. And this will kind of get tied down as you keep going along this side. So you're just going to keep going along and do that on the side, the same thing in the corner. So I'm back at the starting corner, and I just did the corner the same, working 3 times into that corner space so that it kind of fans around. And I'm going to stop when I'm at the top of the border after I worked that last time up, and I'm going to tie off, make myself a tail, and then I'm just going to use my tapestry needle to sew these 2 sides together to finish off this corner. So, and I like to kind of just go through this top one a couple times just to keep it a little bit more secure, just to keep that a little bit tighter. And then I'll just start trying to kind of line this up and go through these front loops so that it kind of looks like the rest of the border. And go back and forth. Maybe that one. And then you can kind of just weave in this end a few more times into the blanket until it is nice and secure. And then you can just cut this and we're all done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoy making this blanket. If you'd like the free written pattern, visit daisyfarmcrafts.com. There's a link to the pattern in the description of this video. Happy crocheting!